I feel like we live in the society, you said it's hard to be yourself, and it's quite interesting, right? Being yourself should be the easiest thing in the world. So in a way, your vulnerability and your fuck-ups can help you to bond with people, right? If I wake up tomorrow and I don't feel at my best, I just have to remind myself of my identity, and my state will go from here to here. So when you work consciously on your identity and you feel fear, you're entering a situation that scares you. When you remind yourself who you truly are, it's gonna give you wings. It's gonna give you wings.
Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you guys are listening to me from. I am right now here in Malaysia. It's evening. In fact, that's my fourth live session today. Hello. And today I'm going to have an honest conversation with my friend Jimmy, and I'm waiting for him to join. Hi, everybody whom I know.
Hey, how are you? Great to see you. Great to see you.
Good to see you.
Super excited about this.
Oh, I'm too. Thank you. Thank you for joining. You know, every time this time approaches, I'm thinking, does my guest remember? Is my guest going to be there?
No, of course. How could I? How could I forget about this? Come on, I'm super excited. I was just checking your story and I see that Vishen is practicing his dance moves with your kids. That's pretty awesome.
Yes. So just a few words about the guest, about this thing. You know, it's my fourth live session today. My second.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
I had to Facebook earlier, and I think, you know, it's probably a fashion nowadays to be doing this live sessions. Everybody's like, every time you go online, there is like a whole bunch of live sessions going on. But the truth is that this tradition is a little older than our current situation. I promised Jimmy that we'll talk about something which is very interesting to me, which is finding courage to be yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I reread the topics he was suggesting, and I realized that the first topic is also super interesting: how to turn your stress or your uncertainty into passion. So we'll see where it goes.
Yeah, right? Let's just go with the flow. Let's see what happens. This is actually what I like about you, that you really never seem like to have a hidden agenda. You just go with the flow. You say what you think. And I told you, so when we met in LA, you were given a speech, and I told you killed it. You killed that speech. And the reason was that you spoke so openly about your experiences and about your thoughts. And often people say what happened to them, but they are not willing to share the emotions associated with that. And I noticed whenever you talk, you are totally happy to share the emotion. And I think that's important. That is really important, because it builds authenticity. And by the way, I have to mention this because this is pretty funny. So when we went to this gathering that Vishen always organizes, we were there with a bunch of like really amazing people. And so we met in the kitchen, just like our little introverted spot. And we're just like, you know, lots of like really high level people there. So we wanted to like just take a deep breath and have a nice conversation. And then you said, hey, Jimmy, I'm doing this series where I'm interviewing interesting but not famous people, not like those big people, you know, not some of those like big speakers and authors, but like just normal people. So would you like to jump on board? And we started laughing so hard. Remember that?
Well, I was feeling a little bit embarrassed that I would say that, because you actually have a big following, and you have your audience. You're not a not famous person, but you know, we were in a Hollywood actors house with quite some very famous people there. So it just came out this way. I'm so sorry.
No, it was hilarious. I loved it. It's like one of my magic moments. I have my journal where, like, after every trip, especially when I'm on a plane, I open my laptop and I have like magic moments list. That's how I'd like to call it. And every funny situation that happened to me, I like to put in there. So I have almost 500 of those things, because whenever I feel maybe not at my best, I feel bad, I can read through some of those memories and they always bring me up. And I put it in there because it made me laugh so hard. And it kind of set my mood for the evening, because we laughed so hard. And it was always talking to you feels so genuine that it fueled me with this energy just to go back in there and interact with people.
It was, yes. Thank you for taking it this way. I just, you know, it's a battle, because of course I have my filter and my team, and it's not like It's not like I'm interviewing just my friends. It has to be someone I find inspiring. So often these conversations which end up here start in my private conversation at some party or somewhere where I meet a person. And if I feel inspired, that's when I invite, and then only then we do the background check. Does it work? It doesn't work.
Makes sense. Yeah, yeah.
But thank you for taking it this way. So I wanted to talk about the courage of being yourself. So sometimes I don't even know. You know, it's like being yourself is a little bit of a balancing game, because you kind of try to be yourself, but then once in a while you realize that you're crossing the line so far that it's not even funny anymore.
Yeah.
So how do you balance that? You know, I want to be honest, but I also want to be appropriate, because I don't buy the whole thing of radical honesty. I'm pathologically honest. I mean, I can't lie, but I'm not going to say everything that I feel generally. So how do you find this balance for yourself?
Well, first of all, I would address the very important point, because most people listening to this, they probably struggle with something a little bit different, which is actually putting themselves out there and even speaking their truth, right? Because what you're mentioning right now, that's the issue that you can have once you are already honest and you are willing to open up. But because the majority of people find it hard to even get to that point, I would want to address this for a moment, because I feel like we live in this society. You said it's hard to be yourself, and it's quite interesting, right? Being yourself should be the easiest thing in the world. And I saw your interview with Jason Goldberg, who's, of course, an amazing guy. And he's one of those people that always inspire me to be more myself and just don't take life too seriously. So if anybody's watching this, you got to go back and watch that interview as well, because it's amazing. And I feel like it's funny how it works, right? Being yourself should be the easiest thing in the world, but it's the toughest thing in the world. But I feel like it comes from the fact that we often compare ourselves to other people. And because everyone is trying to be someone that they are fully not, we wear those masks. And when you look around, you see all of those beautiful masks. You don't see what's underneath. And it's easy to make an assumption that nobody else is struggling at anything, that you woke up in the morning today and you didn't feel like doing anything, but hey, I saw Instagram of that person and he or she is doing so fucking amazingly well. They don't struggle with anything. And it's easy to get into this negative spiral. So I feel like the first thing that's important is to realize that everyone is just a human and everyone struggles. And both me and you, we know, because we know many people who are out there in the public eye, that everyone struggles. We know people who have millions of followers out there and they still struggle, you know, with basic human things. And I think recognizing that, and also recognizing that in your struggle, you can connect with other people, right? Because people don't want to connect to perfection. People want to connect to other people. If for some reason you manage to be perfect, then everyone would look at you thinking, I can't talk to that person because he or she makes me feel insecure. So in a way, your vulnerability and your fuck-ups can help you to bond with people, right? For example, what I sometimes do when I talk to somebody and I know I can come across as maybe too hard sometimes, too much out there, too energetic. Sometimes I like to tone it down. And on purpose, sometimes I like to dig some deep insecurity and share it with that person to make them feel comfortable. And I notice that whenever I do that, whenever I kind of almost shoot myself in the foot, it doesn't backfire. It actually brings so many amazing benefits. It becomes a win-win because that person now sees a human in me. So he or she can open up and then we build that amazing bond. So I think that's important. And then, of course, once you embrace that and once you start being more and more honest and open and vulnerable, that builds authenticity. And I know that there's a point where, as you said, it could be easy to fall into the trap of sharing maybe too much. However, the way I see it, the way I like to look at it, if you ask me something, I like to judge and gauge into your state, your current state. So if we are having an honest conversation, I can see that you really are asking me something because you truly want to know my answer. I'm going to tell you. Even if it means if you change the color of your hair and I think it looks terrible, and you ask me, I'm not going to tell you it looks terrible, but I'm going to tell you, hey, I think it looks decent, but I think the previous hair looked better. For example, at the same time, if I don't see that willingness from somebody for me to be fully open about everything, then I try to not lead up to conversations like this. You know, I try not to create situations where, you know, when I have to be extremely brutally honest with somebody, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. I guess in certain settings it's quite easy to just avoid saying the truth. But I wanted to ask you about something that you just mentioned, because we had a similar theme when I was talking to Jeannie last week, Virginia, and you just said that sometimes you like to pull out the painful moments in people's lives to crack them up so that they're vulnerable. So I want to ask you this: Do you think that we truly have to share our pain for others to understand, or for others to trust us, or to believe that we are honest? Because in my opinion, vulnerability doesn't necessarily connect to pain per se. Like, can you? Do you really have to? Because this is the theme of current society. I hear it so in so many areas. It's like, tell me your pain, then I'll know that I can trust you. What do you think of that?
This is so interesting. Okay, I'm very happy you started talking about this, because I see I talked to my friend Vika. She's really awesome. She was at that party in LA as well. Curious Vika, and she told me that, hey, I see this culture of trauma porn happening nowadays. And we talked about it for a long time. And it's really interesting because I do see it, right? At some point, this movement started of vulnerability, just embrace vulnerability. And I think many people took it a bit too far, where it seems like every second speaker gets on the stage now, and the first 20 minutes is about the terrible story of his or her life. And I think there's a boundary. There should be a boundary. So what I believe in is that when you share your pains with somebody, it has to come from a position of really connecting and relating to that person. So if I'm talking to you and out of nowhere, I tell you, hey, I have to share something with you. When I was a kid, I was bullied and they were beating the shit out of me every day of the week, for 5 years. And that this happened. That's crazy. That's just unleashing all this emotional baggage on the other person. But if we are having a conversation, and maybe I notice that you don't feel too energetic. Hey, is everything fine? Yeah, it's fine. Just like relationship issues. Well, that's the moment when I can share how I went through breakup and I was crying like a baby and it was really tough, but I managed to go through it because it applies to that context, right? And the other person can sense that I'm not sharing this because of this trauma porn, right? Hey, look at me. I suffered so much, so now you can connect with me, right? Now I'm credible suddenly. No. It's about truly connecting. So I think there is a thin line, and it's all about the intention. When you share something, I always believe it's about intention. Recently I had like a little misunderstanding with some friends. We did a trip to Ukraine, and I and some other people left earlier. We left in the middle of this entire trip because of the corona, and we were afraid that we're gonna get locked out there. And we had our reasons, and either side, like you could argue that we were right and they were right. And afterwards, so we had an argument, and afterwards we had a call, and I told them, guys, it's not about who is right or wrong here. It's about our intention. And the fact is, every single person from our group had the right intention. So let's just move on. So I think it's all about intention, what's in here and what's in here.
As you were talking, I remember how we had this conversation in the kitchen in Hollywood at that party. And, because I asked you the question about, do you really have to share your pain to be trustworthy or to be believed? And I don't think so. But then our conversation did start with a very interesting situation where you asked me about how I was feeling. And you managed to catch me not in the best moment, because I had a fairly hard moment in my experience at that time. So I guess what was in you that caught my attention, that we actually continued talking and I didn't try to escape, because sometimes when people want you to share things, you're like, excuse me, I'm not a monkey, I'm not going to share things with you just because you're interested. But I think in your case, what was interesting is that we were just chatting, but you caught up on my emotion and you just genuinely cared. It wasn't prying on what's going on with me. You were like, are you okay? And I think the intention, exactly what you were saying, intention and the genuinity of that intention was what swayed me in that situation to just trust you and keep talking.
100%. Yeah. But also another thing, right? And I think this is important to mention. Intention is one thing, but also being genuinely interested in trying to feel the other person, feel dynamic. And here's the tricky bit, right? You cannot fully do it. You cannot be empathetic. You cannot put yourself in another person's shoes when you keep worrying about how you are being perceived and how many people will give you approval and validation. If you keep worrying about approval, validation, and how you will look in the eyes of others, you don't have the capacity to just pause and reflect, hey, let me tune into that other person's emotions, right? I think that's important. That's what we are missing a lot as a society, that we go into different environments, and because we try to maintain that mask, we are not tuning in. And when you tune in, that's when you can connect, because that situation, without going into details, because it's very private, honest conversation is one thing, but some things we talked about, I don't think should be shared here, but, well, it's up to you. But when I saw you, I could see you, and I could sense that something was a bit off, and that immediately kind of reminded me of the situations when I feel like this, right? And that night, because of the stature of some of the people joining, and, you know, when Vishen sent that guest list, you look at the guest list, you're like, what the fuck? Like, what's going on here? Famous actors, football players, this, like, it can get overwhelming unless you remind yourself these are just human beings, right? But I know for a fact that many people going to that party were not feeling fully comfortable stepping through that door. Because when you step through that door, you are bombarded. You see people here and there, and then you saw that guy on the television, and you saw this person in a movie. And it can be freaky. It can be freaky, right? And then what happens is then the defense mechanism kicks in when you are becoming very aware of what's happening in you. Oh, I hope I look confident. I hope nobody can sense I'm freaking out. So you pay so much attention to yourself that you don't really tune into, hey, that person, what he is saying or what she's saying, I can really truly relate to this. Or I can see that person's face and I have a strong feeling I should go and talk to them, you know? So you lose that intuitive ability. And I think our intuition is really fucking strong. We should believe in our intuitions more than we do nowadays. We try to overanalyze everything, and we do, you know, all of those lists, pros and cons, and try to figure everything out. But sometimes your intuition already knows everything. You just got to tune in, right? So anyway, I don't want to go on a rant because I had a podcast before, and you know, once I get into it, I just keep going. So
no, it's beautiful because you're talking in the direction I was planning to ask you. Because you said, you know, sometimes you walk in and you feel like, my case was a little different. I wasn't intimidated so much by the guests, but literally I felt the same. I was wondering about, you know, what's my position here? Who am I? How do I come across? And so I get it. Like sometimes we go to a public place and rather than connecting to people, we are managing ourselves and not really tuning into it. But I wanted to ask you this because you were talking about that, and I remembered you had the case in your life where you ran away from stage. And when you said that some people felt like running away from the party, I remember that case. Can you share that?
Oh wow! Okay, so that's cool you mentioning this. So look, nowadays when it's actually interesting. Wow, it's a great topic. When people see me on stages nowadays, they assume that, oh, this guy is always confident. It's easy for him. It's easy for him. But the same way when you see a UFC fighter, you see McGregor or Nate Diaz, one of those guys. Oh wow, they just have it in the DNA. Nobody can see the hours and hours of just constant work and discipline to wake up at 6 a.m, go for that 20K run before the session even starts, right? Nobody sees that. Everyone just sees a fancy car, big paychecks, and TV cameras, right? So I feel like with me, even though, of course, I'm not at that level, when I get on stages, for example, at Mind Valley in Tallinn, you know, we had how many thousand people in the audience. And some people told me like, hey, how can I build my confidence to speak like you? Because you seem very comfortable. I don't see even a trace of anxiety in you. But again, the answer is perseverance and just keep pushing yourself beyond that comfort zone where you feel like you're going to fail. And then you keep pushing through that pain that you're experiencing. So it all started back in the day. I was at university, you know, I was in this organization called ISEC. And I'm sure, of course, you know, ISEC. I think, were you in ISEC as well? Because I know Vishen was in ISEC.
I was, yeah.
Okay,
that's
where
cool.
we met. Okay, that's cool. So probably some people watching this also know it. So one time we were supposed to, I was already in this management board at our university, and we were supposed to give a presentation to entice new students to join ISEC, right? So I never forget, we had probably 100 people in the room, no microphones. It was like provisional stage, and it was almost my turn to speak. And maybe 2-3 minutes before my turn, I felt confident beforehand. I felt okay. And then I realized what I was supposed to do. I realized I need to get on that stage. And I had this thought of, there's no way I can do it. Like, there was a wall. Like, this is not possible. You know, the way if somebody told you, you gotta do 100 burpees. No, it's not possible. You gotta do marathon now. Like, you just know it's physically not possible. That's how I felt. And suddenly I felt sweating. I felt my heart beating faster. I felt, you know, even those veins here, bam, 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 popping. And, you know, this feeling you have when you're on a plane and your ears are blocked out. This type of weird feeling like I'm in some trance. And I felt like if I get on that stage, I'm just going to pass out. I felt like I'm going to get dizzy. I'm going to pass out. So, made the long story short, what happened was I felt so paralyzed. At some point, I told my friend, Rob, you are watching this, high five. I said, hey, man, I have to go. I have a stomach problem. Don't remember the exact words, but I said something about my stomach. And I remember when he responded in the lines of, like, no, you have to speak. And I was already gone. I went across the stage. I opened the doors and I left. And I went to the toilet.
Oh,
and
my
I was,
God.
and it felt terrible. And I'm standing in the toilet, and somebody, somebody came up and they were knocking on the door. Hey, are you okay? And I was pretending like like making noises as if, and I think it's the first time I shared this bit of the story. I get honest conversation, right? I was literally pretending like I'm vomiting and I'm in terrible pain. But then after a few minutes, what happened was my heart beating faster subsided, and I started feeling more comfortable because I realized, okay, I'm getting back into my comfort zone. Like, nobody will do anything to me here in this toilet. I'm back in the comfort zone. But then something worse happened. I started getting this feeling of tremendous regret of, like, I just run away from the stage. I can't do it forever. I will go back to ISEC, and first of all, I'm going to be a laughing stock unless I really, like, play the part and act, as if I had stomach issue. But then there'll be another presentation, and I knew that the trauma will stay because at that point I already knew a little bit about psychology. I was really deep into it, so I knew how it works. I knew the trauma is being created right now, and that's when I decided I'm going back to that fucking room. I'm just fucking going back right now. And I literally, I needed to psych myself up, and I started going, and I never forget. Even now, I've the legs, heavy legs. I'm in front of the doors, and as I open the doors, I walk in, and it's almost like in a movie, like a trance, where I don't remember what was happening. What I remember was that somebody was already in the middle of something, but I knew I can't wait for them to finish because I'm gonna get into the same situation, and now I can't tell them again, hey, I have a stomach issue. So I barged into the front and I started talking. And the funny thing, and I don't think I shared this at Mind Valley, I may have not shared it from the stage in Tallinn, but what happened was, because I was so stressed out, I told people right away, close your eyes. And I did it as a defense mechanism because I didn't know what to do. So I said, close your eyes. And I'm going to teach you a little technique that you can use if you're stress presenting. So I said, close your eyes. And I didn't know what I'm going to say. And then I started narrating some story about me traveling, hitchhiking. And then I said, okay, open your eyes. And then I said something, could you see it? Well, this is what my life is all about. And I started talking some random bullshit. But the funny thing was that after a few minutes, I got comfortable. And then when I finished, people came up to me later. They said, this was pretty nice. And I was like, what? Could you see, like, couldn't you see I was, like, stressed out? No, this was pretty cool. So that made me realize a bunch of things. Made me realize that what you feel inside is actually not what people see. People cannot see how you feel, right? Another thing that actually many people, I'm glad so many people talk about it because it's important. Eric Edmeans talks about it. Tony Robbins, like everybody who does something in this industry talks about it, that excitement is similar to anxiety, and you can turn anxiety into excitement, and nobody will ever know, right? But what I wanted to share, if you are watching this and you are a fearful presenter, I see somebody is doing like the laughing emoji. I had this many times. It says, that's awesome. So what you can do is when you're getting on a stage and let's say you have history of panic attacks and you wanna know that everything will be fine, you can create like a crotch. When your leg is broken, you go on crutches. You can create a crotch that you probably will not have to use, but you have it under your sleeve, quote unquote. So you can use that technique I used back then. I didn't know it was a technique. I just made it up on the go because I had no choice. But you tell people, if you at any point feel extremely uncomfortable and you feel like you may pass out or you may lose your voice, you can literally tell people, close your eyes. Can you please close your eyes? And most people will do. And then suddenly the pressure is off because no one is looking at you. So now you kind of, you're tense, and then you can relax. And then you can tell them, okay, take 5 deep breaths. Okay, now we have more energy. Awesome. So let's keep going. Just want to make sure we keep the energy going. Now, everybody will think it's about them. Everybody will think it's about you giving energy to the audience. But the fact is, you're doing this so you feel more comfortable. Fortunately, I never had to use it. But I think maybe the reason I never had to use it like this is because, you know, in the initial days of my speaking career, I knew I could have used it, right? So just the awareness that you have like this little crutch that you can use if shit goes down gives you a lot of confidence, because you say to yourself, well, what is the worst case scenario? I'm going to pass out on the stage. I'm going to get a panic attack. No, wait a second. If that happens, I just tell people to close their eyes and I tell them to take a few deep breaths. And that's it. So suddenly the pressure of you not getting that panic attack becomes lower. And paradoxically, because of that, you never have it. And then what happens is you get on a stage and it goes well. And then you go again and it goes well. And then eventually you realize, well, it's going well all the time. So you start realizing that that other thing is just some weird illusion of your mind, and you will never run away from the stage again. Like nowadays, when I get on a stage, I feel amazing. But because of all of this, you know, you got to build up to that. And actually, the last thing I want to share, at Mind-Value, so what I did, I was doing this talk about overcoming fear, right? And I'm not sure if you were in the room back then, but many people came to that talk. And I told people, if you are afraid of public speaking, raise your hand. Just honestly raise your hand.
In fact, if you guys who are listening in are afraid of public speaking, you can also raise your hand.
Yeah,
you don't have to be a speaker to be speaking publicly. I mean, we have conversations every day with people we don't know.
100%, like group conversations or anything, doing video calls. But I told them, raise your hand if you're afraid of public speaking. And then what happened was, huge number of people, almost everybody raised their hands. And then I told them, okay, now I want you, and I'm pretty sure we can even link up like a screenshot from that. It's crazy. I told them, if you raise your hand, stand up for a moment. I'm not going to call anybody out, just stand up. And then everybody stood up, and I'm like, now look around. Next time, and you can imagine, as I'm talking about it, just imagine this, because this is real. This is I've done this on a bunch of stages. Every time the same thing happens. So this is real, right? Everybody stood up. And I told them, look around, make a snapshot with your brain. Just picture this, like just capture this moment. Next time you get on a stage and you feel afraid, realize that everybody in your audience wouldn't want to be where you are because they're shitting their pants. And when you remember that, for real, when you remember that, you will be unstoppable. Because whenever self-doubt kicks in, you look the audience and you're like, well, if I ask them to come here, nobody would want to do it. And that gives a lot of power, because it makes you realize that nobody is there to judge you. Nobody is in the audience to judge you, to look at you and say, oh, look at Kristina. Oh, she has accent. She's this, she's that. It's like, no, nobody cares. They're there because they want to learn from you. So as long as you focus on giving value to that person, to a group of people, you're going to do just fine, you know? And then the point from before, if you remember, well, if I'm a human, then more people will connect with me because of my common humanity. Then it gives you even more power, because first of all, you're like, well, nobody wants to be here. I'm here. So they give me the credit just for being here. And by the way, if I make a mistake, perfect. We will connect even better. And if I start getting panic attack, great. I have my technique I can use. Okay, pressure goes away. And then you're killing it, you know? Anyway, I feel really pumped.
No, that's awesome. I love your energy. I really love that people are commenting, and thanks for raising hands. We'll go into that a little deeper, because I want to talk about fear. And I understand that we're talking about the context of speaking on stage, but this is something that a lot of people can imagine, and a lot of those lessons actually work in any area in life. You know what I wanted to ask, actually, not ask, but maybe share, because yes, it's hard to go on stage. It's scary. But what helps me is usually just, admit certain things. And I know that in speaking, the rule number one is never say that you're scared or you are whatever. It's like you set the tone, but still certain things are okay to admit. Like if my accent is very obvious, I might just as well say, make a joke about it. But what I want to say, I had a situation, because I often want to run away from stage, not from stage, but before you go on stage. The moment you're on stage, you make this first breath, and then your breathing gets to normal, and eventually you're comfortable and you're fine there. But I've had twice situation in my life, and the first one wasn't so intense. The second one was just recently, actually a year ago, where I am speaking on stage, and in the middle of the speech, I feel like I want to run away. Not before I go, but it's just, everything is just going as wrong as it can. Like I can't feel the connection. I can't even hear my voice, or it's you just realize that you are just going through that motion of being here, and it's like it's a waste of everybody's time because you've lost that moment. Have you had these situations, and what would you do? Yeah.
Okay, so it's very interesting that you're sharing this. I had situations, I know what you mean, like when you're in the middle of the speech and you start feeling weirded out, that is really tough, right? Because then what happens is, before you get on the stage, it's normal to feel like this, and you kind of know it's going to go away. But once you're in the middle of the speech, it's like, oh, it was supposed to be, it was supposed to be gone already. But what I like to do, I mean, it happened to me several times. Fortunately, like recently, my recent speeches, it hasn't happened, just because of the sheer volume. The more you do it, it just becomes like second nature, right? It's like if we are doing those calls like 10 hours a day, you could at some point, like you could sit naked like this and not care, because it just becomes so normal, right? But what I would do is I like to control my breathing. So what happens often is that when people get stressed out when they are on a stage, or actually in any situation, they start talking really fast and the breathing gets very shallow. And I'm a very big believer in the power of, but today I started my day with Wim Hof breathing and burpees, and then really cold shower. So I'm a big fan of breathing. I think so many great things come from your breath, or so many bad things can come from your breath if you don't do it properly. So then what happens is you are on a stage and you get stressed out, and then it's kind of this happens. So, you start swallowing, and then at some point, right? And then at some point you start speaking really fast, and then you take a breath, but then you start thinking, if I take a breath now, like say I'm talking, and then everybody will see it and everybody will know I'm stressed. So then I'm going to get even more stressed. So we get into this spiral. So what I like to do, I just like to snap myself back to the moment and realize, again, like same thing. Most of those people wouldn't want to be here. Let me just take a deep breath. But I don't just do it looking at the audience. I share a point, and then maybe I start walking to the other direction, and then I take a breath, right? So it's like I believe in movement. I believe in, so you know what I mean? So if I'm speaking, I'm occupying one spot because I'm making a point, and I've been standing here for the last maybe 30 seconds. I start feeling weirded out. Well, I'm going to start moving to my left, and then I'm going to take a breath, because as you're moving, it's more natural to pause, right, on a stage. If you just stand and look at people like this, and then you pause for 3 seconds, it feels strange. But if I just made my point, and then I start moving, and then I pause, it feels normal, because it feels like, well, I'm just changing the spot. So that's kind of little. And then I just focus on, and when I take a breath, I take the microphone away from me, so people can't hear this, right? So I take the microphone a bit away, and I just take a deep breath, and I know nobody can see it. So there's a lot of homework that goes into it, because I know intellectually that nobody can see what I'm doing, right? Just like with eye contact. If I'm looking at you and you are standing 1 meter from me and I'm looking at your forehead, you will notice. But if you're standing 5 meters from me and I'm stressed out and I'm looking here, you will not even know. You'll think I'm looking into your eyes. It may feel strange for me to do it, but you will not see the difference. So the same thing happens on a stage. You think that people can see every single movement, that they can see that maybe your hand is shaking a little bit. You think that they can sense and hear how you are swallowing, right, and doing all of those things. Nobody can see this. Quite frankly, nobody gives a shit. People are too busy with themselves. So in most cases, people are tuning in, but then, they also checking their phones from time to time maybe, or they are taking notes. Nobody's like paying so much attention. I always tell people, whenever people get stressed out, I give them this example that how many times, like, are you watching presentations on your, on YouTube? or you watch like Netflix, or you watch like anybody who is doing something out there, how often are you paying attention to little bodily reactions that person has? Never. Never, right? You pay attention to the big picture, and remembering that as you are on a stage really helps you, because it kind of allows you to play around and just to be yourself, to take a deep breath without worrying that somebody will think that it's a sign of being extremely stressed out. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. I suddenly remembered your advice. Close your eyes, take a deep breath. You know, Jimmy, I want to
try
actually
it. Try it.
a bit from speaking on stage, because it is a very specific thing for some people, not for everyone. But back to regular life, and by regular life I mean be it your business or career. So, do you have any tips or ideas how to get over your fears? Because we all, like, if you do anything, you usually are afraid from time to time. So how do you train your courage to in real life to
training courage? That's interesting. That's a big question. Let me talk about, because I could talk about many different things here, but let me talk about two things. Okay, first of all, I think it's important to remind yourself that you already have so many moments in your life where you overcame your fear and built something that you didn't expect was possible. And we often forget about it, right? So what happens is, for example, now, lockdown, right? People losing jobs, businesses going down, uncertainty. If you check news, more than 5 times per day, it's really fucking up your brain. I mean, it's easy to feel in despair, to feel like life doesn't make sense and there's no future, right? So I know times are challenging, but I think in those times especially, it's important to remind yourself of the moments in the past where something seemed impossible, something seemed like there's no way I can overcome this, and then you still managed to overcome it. And it could be on micro scale, macro scale, it could be something big, something small, it could be something as simple as if you are next to your girlfriend, boyfriend, spouse, you look at them realizing, wow, I remember how I met this person for the first time, and I was afraid that, like after the first date, that we will not see each other again because I didn't think the date went so well. And now look at this. Now we are together. It's been 5 years, for example. Or maybe you have a job and then you go back into the time where you tried to get that job and you went for that job interview and how you felt and you had the butterflies and your heart was beating fast and you didn't feel like you could make it happen. Or maybe learning foreign language, right? I mean, certainly for me, I like to remind myself of a situation where back in Poland, didn't speak any languages, right? Just Polish. And then I have this dream of, in 2 years, I'm going to study in the UK, right? So when you go back to those moments, you realize, wait a second, there are many, many times in my life where something was almost insurmountable. So I was so fearful about something and I managed to overcome it. And I think that really fuels you because that makes you realize you're capable. We have to go back to those times. I think second thing, I don't just think, like I know for a fact, the second thing is little comfort zone pushes on a daily basis. And I know it sounds like a cliche. Everyone talks about it. If you don't do something scary every day, you are failing, right? It's not about necessarily doing something extremely scary every day, but because I don't think that's also sustainable. I think it's very hard for many people to keep going with this. But I think doing something that puts you in a state of discomfort every day to some extent is extremely important to learn how to manage fears. So to give an example, I always wanted to learn Spanish, right? And I figured I can learn it by going to school and getting a teacher and doing it traditional way, but I knew it's not going to work for me. So instead I obsessed over it. And then at some point I went to Spain. I went to Malaga. I got myself this little apartment in the middle of the city. And I told all my friends, sorry, but you cannot join me this time. It's my own journey. I'm going to be up by myself. And for 1 full month, I went on the streets every day and night with a lot of wine. I drank so much wine that month. It was crazy because I felt insecure. I felt stressed out of my mind. But every day I would push myself, just go out there and you have your notes and just talk to strangers. Just walk over and just say, hola, ¿qué pasa? ¿Dónde está la buena fiesta? And then you say it 10 times. And then somebody starts talking to you and then you lose the conversation. But instead of getting into English, you pretend you don't even know English. Right? And then you go to another and you just keep going. And I did it every day, every single day, to the point where I met some British people and I pretended I didn't know English because I was afraid if I make friends with them, my experiment will be over. But guess what? Every day pushing yourself a little bit like this, suddenly interactions with other people are a no-brainer. And this comes from somebody who's panically afraid of being rejected by people, somebody who had social anxiety. So I think doing those little pushes every day, and especially now on a lockdown, to kind of bring it to something that anybody can relate to. When I say push yourself, could be something simple, right? Overcoming fears, cold shower in the morning. Do 5 seconds. Do 5 seconds tomorrow. 5 seconds. And then the next day, do 6 seconds. Just go by seconds. 6, 7, 8. Just go by seconds, right? If you, for example, if you struggle with social anxiety, if you struggle with going out there talking to people, create a situation, create a system that will make it impossible for you to fail. So, for example, schedule calls like this one. Pre-schedule them, commit to people. You can't get out of your commitment, right? So maybe go through your WhatsApp and go all the way to the bottom and find people. And why all the way to the bottom? Because you will find people that you used to have really great relationship with, but for whatever reason you haven't talked for a long time. Send them a message, send them Doodle calendar, and tell them, hey, it's been a long time. It would be amazing to catch up. Let's do a half an hour call. Pick any time. These are my times. It would be awesome to talk to you. And just send it to 10 people. And just, it's all about doing that. And then maybe you have one call every 2 days. And then you realize it's actually fun to talk to other people. So then maybe next time you schedule a call with 5 friends. And maybe a week from now, you decide, I really want to push myself. Maybe you schedule, maybe you do Instagram Live without even scheduling, right? Less pressure, because maybe nobody will be there. And then you do that, and then you feel more comfortable. And then you say, wow, I feel comfortable. Let me schedule Instagram Live for 1 week from now. And then people actually jump in and they watch you. And then you go through that. And then you decide, let me do like combined Facebook, Instagram, and something else. And then maybe next thing you know, you build an online course. So it's all about, I think, taking little steps, but every fucking day, just a little bit. You got to keep pushing yourself.
So there was an interesting small question I'll ask you, and then I want to read this one which just came up. So a small question was, Jimmy, are there any days in your life when you do nothing? It's not from me.
Oh, yeah.
It was from other people.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. Of course, yeah. I mean, so this is the funny thing. I'm not surprised by this question because, like, when I'm doing calls like this, it really fires me up. When I'm doing calls, when I'm on a stage, when I talk to people, because I'm really passionate about it. So I know there may be a perception, this guy looks so fired up, he's always on. No, I'm not always on. And I have moments when I purposely just switch off. Like, for example, one time I went to the Himalayas by myself for almost 3 weeks, just hiking. And there was no business. And at that time, I was already like doing crypto and I knew I can lose some investments if I don't. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm just gonna go in there and I'm just gonna embrace the power of silence. So I really believe in that. What I don't believe is kind of dabbling in between two worlds, where you are not fully on, but also you're not fully off. Where you think you are relaxing, but actually you are just going through your Facebook wall for the 57th minute. And you think you're relaxing, but you are watching the 4th hour of Narcos in one go, where you're almost like, I don't believe in that. What I believe in is that identify those moments. I ideally engineer the moments of tremendous passion, power, and then get things done. Just go after it, right? Like after this call, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to open my laptop. I'm going to be writing. Because talking to you, I'm really enjoying it. I've always enjoyed talking to you. So now doing this and also knowing that I see many people tuned in, more people will watch it later on. This is great. This is some type of impact. I'm loving it. I'm going to use this energy later to sit and write. And I'm just going to be writing like crazy. But in the evening, if I feel drained and if I feel that my energy, that this type of energy is gone, I'm totally cool to tell my girlfriend, you know what, let's do Wim Hof breathing for an hour. And then let's just chill. Let's cuddle. Let's relax. So I do that. From time to time. And I think it's important because it's like yin and yang, you need to have different sides of the same coin, kind of. So you can't be fully on if you are not fully off from time to time. That's why I believe that meditation practice is so important. What, for example, Jay Shetty does every day, this 20-minute meditation, those types of things. I think this is hugely important because it just helps you to recalibrate. So, it's almost like, it's like when you give an analogy, right? When you train for a fight, if you're a fighter, if anybody here does like Thai boxing or jiu-jitsu or things
I
like
do.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Kickboxing.
you actually do, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, that's we got to talk about it some other. Seriously, this is yeah. I'm really into this stuff. So when you train, you have your training camp, and you go really crazy. You go at it, but before the big fight, you are not training like crazy. You got to take some time off. You got to keep your body moving. You got to keep loose. But now is not the time for crazy training. Same if you are doing any type of obstacle races. I love obstacle races. You don't go crazy a week before. No. You gotta rest a little bit. You gotta be smart about what you eat, about your mental state, and then you go after it. So I think in life and anything in business is the same, right? You working, but then you need times of charging or recharging, times of relaxation, of not even consuming anything, just going deep within your mind. Otherwise, you're just gonna implode, you know. So that's what I believe in.
I really love the concept of doing it fully. Either you work fully, but you do it then full on, or you rest. I even heard somewhere a scientific explanation to how this half rest, half work is actually very damaging to us. Jimmy, there was a question I wanted to ask you because it's related to the topic, and it came also from one of our audience. And the question was, so how do you have the courage? We only have 10 minutes, though, to answer this question. How do you have the courage of being yourself if you think that you are not enough, that you're not smart enough, that you're not... I don't remember the full question, but you're not enough. And people simultaneously were actually sharing their fears. So there were fears of, oh, I have the accent, maybe my grammar is not so good, maybe people won't show up, and so on and so on. So how do you overcome the fear where you genuinely believe, overcome the fear of being yourself, where you genuinely believe that you're not good enough?
Okay, so that's a great question. So how I would approach it is I would go backwards. So if you want to overcome the fear of not being good enough, then you got to work on the foundation first, because if you, there are different techniques. We don't have the time for that, of course, but there are techniques where even if you fear, even if your self-esteem is suffering, you could get into a situation with power, with perceived confidence, but it's not going to be the core confidence, right? So I think at the beginning you have to work on the foundation, which is realizing that you are good enough. And there are different ways you could go about it. I think definitely working consciously on your identity. What is your identity? And be very fucking conscious. What is your identity? And then if it's not positive, and in most cases it's not, reframe it, just mechanically reframe it, create identity that gives you wings, right? And then also, and I'm going to get back to it in a second, just don't forget this, another thing. So I think finding role models who are specifically on a similar path, or let me rephrase it, who were on a similar path and who went through similar struggles. So for example, if you have an accent, well, instead of just watching the big shots, Tony Robbins and Gary Vee and people like that, find people who are ahead of you in this game who also had accent or still have the accent.
Esther Perel, for example.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Like, look at those people who still have some accent and look at them, realize, wait, so they are doing what they are doing now. They're doing tremendous things, but they have accent. Clearly, this wasn't an issue. But then dig deeper and maybe find out if they are talking about this. So address that one specific issue in your head, right? And by looking for people who overcame the same pain, make yourself realize that it's not as debilitating as it may seem. By the way, accent is a very common thing. We could probably do like separate podcast conversation just about accents, you know. But I think identity is extremely important. So to give you an example, my identity back in the day, growing up in Poland, was extremely negative. So I have a bunch of pictures where I'm standing like this. Like every picture, I'll be like this. And the reason was that I thought my teeth were crooked, and I thought that which at some point they got crooked, but I needed to wear braces. But I really thought that they were really bad. I felt that I had a really bad smile. I felt inadequate because my father is originally from South America, from Guyana. I always felt like I was different. I always felt like I was the outsider. So I never felt fully Polish. Kids always reminded me that I'm not fully from there. So I had those limiting beliefs, right? So if somebody told me back then, close your eyes and visualize yourself and tell me what you see, I would see a, you know, poor Polish kid, you know, with bad posture, skinny, with bad smile, like not a nice smile, limiting beliefs, and like not a lot of power in the world. That's what I would see. And when you have that self-image, when you have that identity, that doesn't really help you in accomplishing what you want to accomplish. And then over the years, I've been changing that identity. So for example, now my identity is that, like, it's very simple. I'm a fucking Spartan leader. As crazy as it may sound, I'm a Spartan leader, and I'm on a mission to change the lives of millions of people. I'm talking millions and millions of people. And I'm willing to go through any pain that's necessary to make that a reality. But I want to live a cool life, adventurous life in the meantime. And like, this is my identity. I'm this Spartan leader. And what happens is, I know we don't have too much time, so one quick situation. I was in Canary Islands. We were climbing this cliff face, and I was with a group of people. I was leading a mastermind. So I was the leader of that group, and I went with the main guy organizing the climb, because I don't have the qualifications. I went as the first guy. So we went to the top of this one cliff face, and I had never been there. So I'm like, I had never used this path, so it was kind of strange. And at some point he told me, you see that cable? You will strap yourself to that cable, and then you will unstrap yourself from this one, and then you will swing to the other side, to that other cliff. And bear in mind, we were maybe 50, 60 meters above the ground, above the rocks, and I was supposed to swing on that weird metal cable hanging somewhere there, all the way to the other side. And the first thought was like, I'm not fucking doing this. How? And I told him, I haven't seen you doing this. How do I know that it's safe? Trust me, I've done this before. You can do it. And that's when I realized, wait a second, who am I? I'm a Spartan leader. My mission is to change the lives of millions of people. I look down, I see my group. I see people who came up here because they want to overcome their fears. I'm their fucking leader. How can I be standing here like a little baby? Oh my God, I'm afraid. And I literally mentally slapped myself in the face. I strapped the fucking thing and I just went to the other side. And as I was going, and he had a good point. He said, oh, you got to make sure that they think it's fun. So I'm like, whoa, this is amazing. Guys, you're going to love it. And I'm shitting myself, right? But guess what? This helped. Everybody did it. Everybody did it. And it was hard, but they did it. It was one of the most powerful experiences. But this, again, this is what your identity can do to you. If you have strong enough identity, then it's always going to pull you back into that presence. So when you work consciously on your identity and you feel fear, you're entering a situation that scares you, when you remind yourself who you truly are, it's going to give you wings. It's going to give you wings, right? So how do you do it? Simple. Ask yourself, what is my current identity? Close your eyes. Imagine, who is Jimmy Naraine? And then probably you want to be that positive as you want it to be. And then ask yourself, what do I want it to be? And just write it down, craft it, make it compelling, make it short. I would say 2 to 4 sentences, but make it compelling. You can use words that nobody else will understand. What matters is it's going to trigger emotional response in you. When I say Spartan leader, for most people, they may be wondering, why Spartan? What is going on? It doesn't matter. What matters is that when I say Spartan, I know what it means to me. So create something for yourself, and then keep saying this, as crazy as it may sound, keep saying it to yourself out loud every day. Wake up in the morning, I'm a Spartan leader, here to change the lives of millions of people. That's what I'm fucking doing here on this planet. And you get fired up. And now what happens is, even now sharing this story with you, just because I shared this with you, I'm fucking fired up. It's hard to explain. I feel like I took something, you know, because this is what it does to me. And I tell you why. Every time I jump from some bridge, or I do cliff jumping, like in pull-out what we did, right? Or I do anything that's scary, or I get on the stage, I do ice bath. I say to myself the same thing. I'm a Spartan leader. I'm a fucking Spartan. And there's this neural association that's being connected and created and strengthened over and over again. So now I can use it. So I guarantee you, if I wake up tomorrow and I don't feel at my best, I just have to remind myself of my identity, and my state will go from here to here. So anybody watching this, I really want you to don't just listen to this. Sit down. Take 10 minutes, 15 minutes, ask yourself, who do I want to be? And fucking become that person. If you want to write a book, your identity should be that you are already an author. You are an author. If you want to speak on stages, you don't say, oh, I want to speak on a stage one day. No. Fuck one day. Say to yourself, I am a speaker. I'm a compelling speaker. That's who you are. You become that person, and because you become that person in your head, it's going to be so much easier to externalize it.
Jimmy, we will have to finish because
Instagram like
will cut us off in about 1.5 minutes. But, you know, I gave you 2 more things to add to your identity. You're an artist and a philosopher.
Thank you.
I hope they give you inspiration in some areas, but never mind. So thanks a lot for being so vocal and honest, and for sharing yourself so willingly and so honestly. People who didn't know you, I hope you follow. Jimmy is amazing. He's an inspiration. I know there are a lot of really good compliments here. And traditionally, please leave Jimmy a heart for being with us. Thank you for being with us. And literally, it's like less than a minute. So I'm going to say bye now.